Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Welcome to Expedition Self with Sam Parado, a lifelong learner and entrepreneur. Sam is the creator of the growth-producing worlds of Expedition Self, where seekers hang out so they can live a conscious life of love and personal fulfillment. As she shares 4 decades of studying, guiding, and teaching, you'll learn how to go inside and build an empowered relationship with the self. Ignite your self-development process with Sam.
Hello, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Gosh, Tuesday night. Here we go. I was thinking about the show and I thought, how could we actually start it so that everybody gets in the frame of mind that makes it the richest, most full, like fill your belly up kind of experience. And so this is what I came up with. So before I say anything about the show, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. All right, here we go. What are you working on within yourself right now? And since I last saw you, what has been playing out in your life and how do you feel about it? Okay, big breaths. And I'd like you to just kind of drop in, right? This is that hour where you get to think about you and focus on you and hopefully take some of the things that I'm bringing and bring them into your own process. So tonight we're going to talk about this epic idea, the idea of truth. And I think about truth as the place we would like to start from. We wish we could start from, because, you know, if you show up in life with your truth, the idea of truth, well, then truth becomes that place you begin everything from. So the question we're going to explore, and I'm going to move my notes up here just a little bit, is how to make the truth more real and more of an integrated, actually, part of you. Do you think it's possible that truth isn't as true as we think it is? Well, we might find we're talking a little bit about that tonight. And we're also going to touch on all of our extra segments. And so if you'll recall, this whole hour is like a variety show growth hour. And so in this hour, we do a portion about what the actual growth process is, like talking about the process. And then we have what I call the core portion, which stands for communication, ownership, relationship, and emotions. And so each show will zero in on something around one of those topics. And then we also have our community section where it's actually an area that I am always exploring and feel like I'm learning about all the time. So we also are working on developing our virtual community. So I'm hoping you'll help us with that tonight. And then the last part is the creative timelining. And if you watched last show, we talked about how important timelining is to kind of laying out your life through a variety of different lenses. And so tonight we're going to work on that again. Before we get started, also, we are, I want to tell you when the next shows are, because we don't go every Tuesday night, right? So our next show is a Purple Room Chat with Benny Ferguson, aka the Movement Monk, and that's going to be on Tuesday, June 18th. And then on Tuesday, June 25th, we'll be having another one of these variety growth hours, you know, and I don't know what to call it. Can you tell I am groping for words there? Anyway, the topic for that night is going to be freedom from the inside. Freedom from the inside. Oh boy. Well, last weekend, I attended a weekend of graduation festivities and activities, and one of the events I attended was a baccalaureate, and this young student, he was you know, he was speaking. He basically got up and started to talk about his story while he was in college and how he felt like he was a machine. and that he was emotionless, and he felt this incredible need to be perfect, and that it got so bad and he felt so empty, which he described really so bravely, that he didn't think life was worth living. And it was so moving, really, because he was putting in words what I think so many of us really do. And we may not do it in the extreme where it's all the time, but we're just constantly pushing ourselves, constantly, feeling as if we have to override what's really going on inside to make the day work or to accomplish the things that we want to. So, I do like the excitement, right, of trying something in the moment and knowing it won't go perfectly for whatever I've decided perfect is and experimenting. But here's the thing. We're always, and I know this is true for me, I'm managing, even if I can clean my judgments out of it, which I sometimes can, then I'm also aware that I might be experiencing other people's judgments and having to create that line inside of ourselves where we don't allow that to influence or take away from that experimentation, which is really the delight, right, of being in life, is that's actually doubly hard, right? Because the truth is, everybody can find something to make better or improve upon it, right? But the mindset that goes into this is twofold. Part of it is picky and part of it is creative. So when I think about judgment and perfectionism, it's kind of like, how do we keep sifting out and sorting to the side the part that is just trying to pick something apart just for the sake of doing it, so the intellect has something to do with itself, and the part that actually is creatively saying, hey, this is a great idea, or I'd really love I'd love you to try this because I think it would make a difference. So as a beginning tonight, I'd like you to see this show through that lens of what is she trying to create for me and what is she wanting to happen in this moment, and see if you can allow it to be exactly what it is, for what it is, without finding finding something to pick about it, because there's no question that I'm feeling my way. The timing on this show and all the pieces we're trying to pull together, there's a bunch, right? And I haven't gotten a chance to do this. So in some ways, I'm living my dream. And in other ways, I'm in this big experiment that I don't know that it always works out. And, when I was on the radio show, that was my biggest thing, is I would like, do I have enough content? Am I going to run out? What am I going to do with that extra 10 minutes? So anyway, I'm hoping you'll be soft and gentle with me as I keep learning how to do this and make it meaningful for me and for you. Let's see. There was something else I wanted to tell you, and I don't remember what it is, but it'll come back to me. But a bunch of things that you should know as we begin this show is that every show you can write in or call in, and we'll put the phone number in the chat. I don't remember whether it's the same phone number we used to use or not. Also, and if we could show this downloadable, the number 2 slide, that would be great, is that we create a downloadable page for every show. There you go, right there. And that downloadable page you can find by going to Expedition Self to the TV button /TV. And those downloadables are designed to give you something to play with and deepen your exploration with. And we hope you will go take advantage of everything that we offer. Couple big things about this show, we're offering an entire month-long course with videos and coloring sheets on the subject of reality, which is it's like a cousin, right, to the conversation about truth. The other thing that's happened since we last talked is the daily dispatch, which is a daily text that you'll receive that is now free. And so you can go and sign up for it, and you can get just a little bit of growth stuff every single day to help you stay on your program, stay focused on being inside. All right. Oh, okay. I think that's it. All right. So the next one that I would like to share with you. Oh, actually, can we do slide number 3? Because that's the reality. You'll see that's one of the coloring pages in the reality show. slide number 3. There it is. I claim my reality. That's really the upshot of that. Okay, I'm glad we showed that. So the next slide is really somebody I found on Instagram, and I do love social media. This gentleman's name is Joey Starr, and he is a 5th grade teacher by day and a photographer by night. And this post, which we'd hoped to be able to actually run it like we had kind of challenged last time, we had our new challenges this time. But this particular post, if you go check him out, is all about the idea that life will keep serving up your experiences over and over and over until you actually learn something about them. You learn to think differently, or you learn to relate to them differently, or you understand them in a new context. And I just really loved it, because then they end with this idea that if you keep bringing the same thinking, the same attention to everything, then you're pretty much inviting life to keep giving you the exact same experience over and over. And I just thought that was such a poignant, right, growth idea, I mean, it fits to me as I think about all the things that I've done in life. So, okay, let's see, where are we? Oh, yes. All right. We are in the next segment, which is the next video, the next slide, which says growth process. Oop, there we go. What you're looking at here is our worlds. And we haven't really talked about them at any length, but they're the background of the words, the growth process. And so this is one of our segments that we wanted to talk just a little bit about. So this time I created a list of the top 15 fundamentals of growth work. And I think that we can go to the next slide there. There we go. All right. So I'm just going to talk through them with you. All right. The most important one, keep the flashlight on yourself, right? On yourself, right? And we're going to come back and talk about that in a second. The other one is be unconcluded, which so works with this idea that when we have truth, we think we're right about it. We think we're sure about it, right? And so being unconcluded, when we're saying it's a fundamental, we're going to see some play in there when we talk about truth just a little bit. I think we have some people. I love the daily dispatches. All right, great. That's awesome, Stephanie. Oh, I have somebody else who mentioned the daily dispatches. Oh, that's cool. People are liking them. All right, number 3, know the difference between a thought and a feeling. A thought can be anything, right? Any fact, any idea. But a feeling does not start with, I feel that. It's, I actually feel, and the emotion or the experience, right? Seek the deepest experiential connection with the self. That is a practice, isn't it? Whether you work through the emotions or whether you work through the body, you're always looking for what can I feel most deeply in myself. All right, this one, speak in I. I know that probably seems so incredibly simple, but when you say I think and I feel, which we talked about at the last show, you stake a claim in that moment. And that claim also has you own what's going to come out of your mouth next. And for a lot of us, that's the first place we give our power away. That's the first place we kind of lose just a piece of it. Avoid ping pong communication. Well, we're going to talk about that next. I'm going to leave that for the next segment, the core group. Get in the other's world. I'm going to let that one just sit there. Seek the unknown and know that you can't know. All of these we're going to come back to in future shows, and we'll do one at a time and talk about it. See the creativity in everything, right? The idea that everything in some way is in some stage of creation. I think it just so helps to remove the polarity, this is a good thing, that's a bad thing, this is positive, this is achievement, this isn't, right? If you see creativity in all, you understand that the creative process doesn't always look active, right? Explore the unwanted parts of you. Oh, that's a big one. That's like dark side, shadow self, unconscious, right? Avoid believing in your truths for too long. We're definitely going to talk about that tonight. Find compassion and empathy within, and avoid pleasing as a way to get loved. All right, so I just want to spend a few more minutes on this flashlight on the self. I played with this all day long today to see what it looked like. And I ended up at one point deciding that putting it and looking at it was not really great for my eyes. So, flashlight on the self. What it means is that every single moment that you're engaged in a conversation or in a thought about what's happening, that you are always looking at what's going on with me. What's happening with me, what just showed up for me, how did I say that thing that came out of my mouth, right? That this idea that we love, even the way our eyes are created, that we like to look outside and then it flips itself and comes back in our eyes, right? The same thing happens with us, I think, as human beings, is we love to watch everybody else. It's so clear, and identify what they're doing or what they're feeling or what they caused or how they were activated or something, but the flashlight on the self, and the more disciplined, the more rigorous we can be with it, the more I think we grow. And so here we go. Let's see, there we go. Okay. And I'm shining it very bright. I think the goal is actually to be able to bring the flashlight on the self without the harsh assessments and the harsh pushing on the self, right, to be something in some given moment, rather than just observing and appreciating and settling into it. All right. So, okay, I think I got through that piece. I'm going to do my wand, since we thought we were going to get to have music or sound as we actually went through this, but it didn't quite work tonight. So I'm going to do my wand. So our next slide will be the core, which core, the words that it represents are communication, ownership, relationship, and emotions. So I want to talk about ping pong communication. And what ping pong communication means, it's kind of like, instead of being with somebody, we're actually bouncing off of somebody, as if you had a little ping pong paddle, right? So it sounds something like, oh, my shoulder hurts so much. And then the person you say it to says, you should be on my body. It's not just my shoulder. I even have my hip, let me tell you. And I couldn't even go to work the other day. Or this one, which is, I'm so upset about what happened with my project. We missed the deadline. Oh, don't worry about it. I miss deadlines all the time. It works itself out. Just don't stress. Right? Ping pong, back and forth. All right. And here's another one. I'm struggling with my sense of hope, and I'm worrying about what's happening in the world. And this is not true. I made this up. And yesterday, I was at the store and I heard someone get all agitated and angry, and their face got all red, and they called another person really an awful, awful names. And the other person says, oh, that does sound really awful. Yeah. The other day I was at Macy's and ... where I'm going to go with there. So we're not being with each other in that ping pong game. We're waiting for the other person to get done so we can tell them what we want to tell them. Half the time, we're not even spending the energy really listening to what's being said, because we're planning the thing that we're going to say next. And so when you want to build relationship, when you want to create more intimacy, the first thing, the most important thing you can do is try to take what's going on for you, put it to the side, and then allow yourself to really be with that person and their experience, what they might be going through. And, the idea is that you can come back later and say, hey, I wanted to tell you about how my shoulder's hurting too, right? You can do that. But the being with somebody else, it has them feel heard. It has them feel seen. And the other thing that it does is it trains you to be able to be in somebody else's world and not just be in your own. I don't think that's always easy. I think every conversation I'm ever in, someone will say something and I'll go, oh yeah, that reminds me of when that happened when I was 10, or oh yeah, last week the same, or I feel exactly like they do. Well, I can't feel exactly the way they do, right? Especially if they don't get a chance to describe what they're feeling or to open up and help me understand what's happening for them. So this idea of being with somebody else, it does something else for us before I wrap this up. And that is, it teaches us how to actually be with the inside of us and the different perspectives that go on inside of us. So rather than one part of us that's driven, let's say, and pushing for a certain way of getting life done, well, now that part learns how to listen to the other parts that might be quieter voices or not even active, right? But at play inside yourself. Okie dokie. I think we're ready to go to our next slide. Let me see what that is. We're over the core one. Oh, yeah. This is a little plug for Daily Dispatch, actually. So you can see it's right on your phone. I hope that you will sign up for it. I would love to feel like all that writing I did makes somebody happy and is helpful. All right. So our next slide here is we are going to be digging into the beginnings of the core conversation today, which is our main topic, the flickering facets of truth. And if any of you saw this on social media, that light actually flickered, which I thought was super, super cool. There's so much we can say about truth, so much. You can think about it when someone says, I'm going to be really honest with you, and like what they think that all means, that's kind of interactive truth. I think this conversation, I want to make sure is that we're talking really about how you work with your own truths and how they come together to actually fortify your sense of self, so much so that you're actually able to release truths, right? Because the more we can take in the idea, let me think how to say this, the more we can take in the idea that under every truth is another truth, the more flexible we get at being able to hear other people's truths in progress, right? Because the idea that a truth is not a final space allows us to make a lot more room for people when they're somewhere in that journey, that trip that we go on as we're trying to find our truths and make sense of our truths. So, all right. I just want to stop and say that at any time, if you have a question or if you want to comment on anything that I'm saying, feel free to do so. And Chris, thank you, gave me the number if you want to call in at 202-570-7057. It would make me happy. I would love to interact on the show. Remember when I said live in my dream? That would be a dream. All right. So your sense of self is made stronger when you can speak your truth. And the whole idea of truth is based on this idea that we alter it in some way because we're afraid or we don't want to cause someone else some feeling or lose out or deal with a reaction. So a lot of times we hide our truth and we hide our truth from ourselves. And maybe we don't even know what truth is supposed to feel like sometimes. And when we grab onto truth, we likely will hold on to it because it feels really good to have surety and security inside of ourselves. I am going to talk to you about why your truth should be more like a bouncing ball or an orb that moves around inside of your inner exploration with the intent of not only finding truths by simply peeling back a piece of data that you didn't know was there, but also by dislodging truths that you've latched onto because they provide some solace and some comfort. Truth is the expression of your heart, of your knowing, and of the things that you identify your life with. It's like the layering of sand, one shade slightly different from the next, right? Another layer, another layer. And your connection to it is defined by how much time you spend examining it. I sometimes think in our world where we're looking for quick fixes and easy hacks and, everything's moving so fast. So who has time to take a truth that feels good in some way, provides comfort, and actually say, well, no, wait a minute. Let me see what else is under that. I think that works against the growth process a lot because I think that the growth process takes the time it takes, All right. So we're going to go on break now. And when we come back, we will pick it up where I've left off, and I will give you some examples of truth and see if this starts to gel for you.
Times TV.
In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, where finding meaning feels like an endless search. Introducing Daily Dispatch, your daily pathway to inner growth and self-discovery. Each day, receive a personalized self-growth prompt. Crafted by a seasoned growth expert with over 40 years of teaching personal mastery. Join thousands of professionals who have found clarity and purpose with Daily Dispatch. Start your free trial today and unlock a more meaningful life, one day at a time. Daily Dispatch. Discover your inner world. Live more consciously in every moment. Get your free trial at www.expeditionself.com/daily-dispatch.
Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
We're back. Thank you for being with me. We are talking about the flickering facets of truth tonight, as well as a whole bunch of other cool growth stuff. The end of that last commercial, I do love that commercial, but it goes with this idea of not going for perfection, but going for the experiment, right? Because that's a lot more interesting and exciting and makes life show up in a new way. So before we went on break, I said I would give you some examples of truth that I hear that people have come to the conclusion of that it is true. Always say thank you, because it's you needing to be grateful, right? It's part of being grateful. Or you can't expect people to just know what you want. You have to be willing to speak on your own behalf. And if you aren't honest with someone, it will eventually come back around to bite you. Okay, well, so those truths are the ones that we pick up as we go through life. We draw these conclusions to give ourselves some sense that we're learning something and that we're able to mature because of these truths. I remember the movie The Great Debaters. It was a movie by Denzel Washington, and Forrest Whitaker was in it. And he played this role of a very disciplined father. And I never forgot the scene. Probably because I don't like discipline, but anyway, he said, you get done. It was very stern, actually, when he said it. And the son was sitting across, and he said, you get done what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. Well, there you go. That is the truth. And, you think about like what causes someone to decide that's the truth that matters to them to speak and to live by. And so there's no truth that's shared throughout life that didn't emerge from someone's real experience and a conclusion that was drawn, right? And you could say, well, they're true, or they're true for you, but they're not the only truths. And what oftentimes doesn't get like pushed up underneath that is, how did that person come to that conclusion? What about their life made that conclusion important? Why did it actually matter? But the truths we want to talk about are the ones we personally feel attached to, right? This is what goes underneath. And they're truths that become conclusions written in concrete because there are emotional attachments to them. I think about it a lot of times as barnacles, on the bottom of a boat, or attached to a whale. I think they do that. I just lost what I know about this. So anyway, I was once told a story about how a woman in a marriage she worked so hard, right, to provide everything that the family needed and that her husband indicated that mattered to him. And she would make sure the dinner was on the table. She cleaned the house. She took care of herself, the children, everything that needed to get done so that things were handled on the home front, so that she could feel accomplished, like she did her job well. And her truth at the time was that she was there to make things easier on a husband, that's what love was, so that he could work and he could take care of the family. And that's what being a good wife was. That's what being a good mother was. And then one day she realized that she wasn't doing this because it made it easier on her husband, and that's what loving was all about. She was doing it because she didn't want to be abandoned without a home over her head and alone. And this truth, it made itself known when he lost his job. And she had to go out and find one and start making money and leave her homemaking job to do a different one. What's hard about that is that oftentimes we don't challenge our truths until life sends us some experience that then now we have to. And I'm just going to do a little growth work plug here. That's why I love growth work. It's like stay ahead of what life dishes out. But I think what's important about this story is that we tell ourselves a whole bunch of truths to justify and rationalize and support the life that we lead or the choices that we make. And these truths, they don't get unseated unless life changes, which it always does. Or we go into our psyches and start looking for truths and questioning them. And so, as I said, this is one of the primary activities of growth work, which is the intention of finding truths and then exploring their origin and the way they are employed in our everyday life, right? So think of it as kind of meta process, or this thing that's running parallel to the doing of life, the getting up, the brushing your teeth, the getting dressed, the making the bed, is that while that's going on, you're thinking about, who am I? What is it that I'm landing in today? What is it that my life, I asked you the question, right? What's going on in your life? How is my life pushing against truths that I thought I already had, right? Like I know a number of people that they believe that if you work hard, that will get you success. I don't know about that truth. I know people that don't necessarily work so hard, and I'm thinking that they are also successful. All right, so let's see. So the reason that it's important to realize that truths are fallible is because when you think about how your truths were formed, they came to be known to you out of experiences and interactions where you were very likely, you could have, I guess, been disassociated from your feelings completely, or you didn't really process it like to its end, or you might have been numbed out since, and you don't want to see a deeper truth, or you left, right, with some specific interpretation that served your needs, and you have no desire to disrupt your conclusion. Okay, did you catch all that? Like, that's everything that's going on when you're having experiences that you're now walking through life with these truths. All that's going on. What's the likelihood that that's the be all end all, whatever truth you came out of it with? The other thing I'm just going to add in here is that a lot of times when we hold on to something really tightly, it's usually because there is some emotional piece that really didn't get worked out, and it's having an impact and making you like attach so much, right? Because you're not going to let it go, because to let it go would open up whatever that emotional experience was that you don't want to have happen again. So truths are conclusions that are like flashing and glowing neon signs to deeper truths. All you have to do is look. You know, last week when I had Alex on the show, and he talked about the sentence we used to work with in the Purple Room, which is that sentence of what's really going on. Well, that question is the same question we might apply, right? When seeking deeper truth. And we can add questions like, why did I conclude this? And what was happening at that time that maybe I didn't see? And what about the truth I believe is limiting how I see my life now? And truth, it has a feeling in the body, right? Many of your truths don't feel like sensory discoveries, though, because they were formed as you were forming. So you just walk with them. They're just part of your bones and your muscle, right? So when you're engaged in growth work, something can happen with your relationship with the truth. You can begin to feel its energy. When you stumble upon it, it can flood your system with tingles and a sense of energy moving throughout your system, and your breath may release, the tension in your chest may give way. You know, when I stumble on a new truth, it produces a feeling of like mini euphoria. Like my heart opens and my mind feels this effervescence, you know, like an Alka-Seltzer pill dissolving in water. It sounds like, oh, I thought I was doing this because of the reason, but I realized I was doing it for that one. Right? There it is, like the aha of it. So these truths I'm talking about at the root of who you are the truths that you run your life from. And they explain every single action you take, every decision, every choice you make. Your investment in seeing these truths and conclusions is an investment in bringing more of you to your life. Every truth has another truth that it's rooted in, and they're incongruous oftentimes. And what I mean by that is that they don't naturally flow in a logical way. I'm going to give you an example. This one's a little bit about me, kind of, not completely, but so a truth about how I spend money, right? Let's say I'm loose with it. That is true, right? I don't watch it that closely. And as a result, I'm wasteful sometimes, and I spend money when I don't need to. So that truth is a belief that money is fluid, it's energy, and there's no need to hold on to it so tightly, right? That truth looks really expansive, right? I guess to some of you could say, I don't know, she sounds like she needs more discipline. But if you go on the idea that truth is an expansive one and provides like for a ton of abundance in life living, and then you dig under that truth, you'll find a very different base, right? Living inside of a constrained family environment with money issues, right? It makes sense that a deeper truth is one of, I don't want to be constrained or limited. Now that truth, right, it sounds kind of logical. You know, wherever we're constrained, we'll often seek the opposite in direct proportion, intensity to how extreme it was. But here's an interesting piece of this truth. The deeper truth has to do with how much personal attention I believe I'm deserving of. And on that level, there's a truth about believing that money is the same as a parent, and there's no way I'm allowing it to dominate me. So what's the deepest truth I could get to? Well, it's that the way I relate to money is tied inside of a power dynamic and has nothing to do with relating to it as a freeing energy, or not a lot, or not everything, and creating abundance, because holding tight and resisting being dominated by it isn't really freeing at all. All right. So, you know, earlier I spoke about the flashlight on the self. Well, it's such an essential fundamental when you're looking for truths, because you have to stay with a line of thinking, a strand that you follow and investigate and work to illuminate. And once you find your truths, you're more equipped to have truths that are not laden, like with hidden agendas and secret needs and unconscious drivers. And this is so important to recognize that truths are layered in untruths. And if you can see these truths in a more pliant way, you're going to get so much more of that self-information. All right. Lastly, I want to say that some of the most powerful truths happen in the moment. And, when you're confronted with some demand or expectation of you, and you are able to say yes or no. I often think the biggest payoff with growth work is getting to a place where you can stand at the precipice of a situation, like open-hearted, where you'd normally just roll over the top of it or avoid it or go along. And instead, your inside gut, your whole self and your heart says, I don't think this is what I want. And this is why. Or what I would really like to see happen is truth seeking. It helps you get clearer and clearer because you start to listen to more aspects and you bring them together. You weave the truths together, and then you clean up the truths by noticing that when this happens, your voice rings clearer. Like it's on pitch, meaning that you hit the center of the note, right? It has a resonant volume and you're more secure in it because you've cultivated that relationship. And even as I describe these moments, when you step towards the edge of some pre-anticipated idea of the way something will go and redirect it, even that truth must be held as not always, not the only way, not the absolute, not right. Because the minute you stay there too long, you've lost the experimental, the curious, right? That in the moment kind of creativity that translates into you creating a new future. I want to describe this before we're done. If you step towards a moment when you risk your safety and comfort and you see that line and your truth is present, or you give it a voice, right? You might speak it, you might act on it, but you at least acknowledge it to yourself. You are creating an original moment, a non-habitual spot for you to move towards. This is the epitome of your power to create. And this is going to have all your cells firing because it's in that moment, in this moment, that you are most alive. So this is why you have to let go of the strength of this feeling, right? Of, oh, I found a truth and it's mine and I'm never letting it go after you have it, because if you hold on to it, then you are moving away from that creative force that you are. And soon you'll forget that the point was to be on that growing edge by taking the risk of sharing a new truth, an unexplored truth, a truth that you didn't see coming, and watching it then make its way into your life. All right. On that note, I'm going to close out this section. And remember, I told you I was working on timing. I decided tonight that I was going to make sure I talked about what I wanted to talk about and see where I ended up time-wise. So I did actually go longer than I would have liked to have gone. So I'm working on it here. So the next section is community. If we could have that slide up just for a second. There we go. Community. So Expedition Self is a community. It's a burgeoning one for sure. And it's the reason that we created the virtual community is because we understand, and I certainly have seen this, that when people get together and support each other in growing and looking inside and really standing for this idea that we can transform together, it makes a big difference. I will say I'm going to find things for the show along the way that are all about community, because I don't think it's gone always easily for me, and I don't know that it goes easily for everyone else either. And of course, when you talk about all the different kinds of communities, whether it's a family or it's a social group or it's church or it's your job, there's a community there. Really, we come back to that the qualitative elements of being in a community are make a lot of difference for how life goes for us. So this, I'm just going to do a short little plug here. Last show, we talked about Armenta. If you could show that slide of Armenta just now. We talked about Armenta and who she was, and that She lives in Tucson and she has a family. If you could show that slide. There we go. And we also just want to give you a little vision of where she lives. If we could show that slide. There we go. Is a delightful, amazing, again, created by our resident artist, Mandy Extraordinaire. And if we could just sit here for just 1 minute, here's what's going on. We need help. We need help. So we created this questionnaire, and we would really appreciate it if you would help us. And if you do, and you include your email address, we'll send you some cool something or other for helping us. We need to talk about her story and how she met Umberto, who's her husband, and we want to name her children, and we want to know who she follows, as influencers, and we want to understand how she even got to Tucson. And we're thinking that you, our audience, have these great ideas and would have a great time helping breathe life into her story and help make this story have more specifics and more details and more nuance. So if we could go to the next slide. On our downloadables page, there's a link here for this, and you can it's a Google form thing that you can collect all your data on. And then we get to see what it is, and then we'll come back at one of the future shows and share what people said. So I hope you'll help us. All right, let's see. We've got a lot of comments that I did not comment on. So let me just say that. So Diane, you said, what would I do if I was in a conversation and it seems to be misunderstood? How do I re-enter the conversation to make some progress for the good? Well, I'm thinking that in that space, you would say the truth is, wow, I don't think it felt so good. I don't think our conversation we just had it didn't go so well for me. I'd really like to talk about something different. And then you might have a deeper truth, which is when conversations don't go well, it really bothers me, right? Now you could see that some of the truth I'm talking about borderlines with being vulnerable, like they go hand in hand. But the key is that the more you share, one of the reasons that I felt like the conversation didn't go well is because I was really attached to this or that. Right? Another truth. Like just the more we speak it, the better things go. Anyway, great question. And I'm glad I circled back around that. All right. Okay, the next, we're going to leave the community conversation now, and we're going to talk a little bit about creative timelining, which is the next slide. And I'm looking over here to the left because that's where I keep my stuff to know where I'm at. There we go. Creative timelining. So, all right. I think you can let that go, and then I'll just talk a little bit about creative timelining. All right. If you're up for it, and if you're game for it, I'd love you to grab a pencil and a piece of paper. And on that, when you do that, like if it's in front of you, what you're going to do, I'm going to hold this up. You see this little tiny spiral? See that one? Okay. So what I would like you to do, I'm going to just walk you through this for just a moment. I'm going to talk about your life, and I want you to begin at the inside of the spiral and really draw it in a way that it's close together. The lines are not touching, and go slow as I talk. And before I do that, what we've done here is we've given you a worksheet to go in with your timeline and look at your life and what you thought of yourself or how you held yourself at every age. And the idea is that you would, on that spiral, you would write in what those words are as you go around the spiral. So in that spiral, the one you can download, there's bigger space for you to write in. But right now, I'm going to just kind of walk you through this idea that you can think about your life through this lens. So, all right. Here we go. So you're going to start at the center of the spiral, all right? So in this moment, I want you to go back to as young as you can remember and slowly imagine yourself walking step by step around the line that you're actually drawing. And think about how you saw you, what you felt like when you were you. And as you take step by step along with the pen, moving line by line, imagine yourself growing to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old. And as you do that, reflect back on who you are. Think about what you look like in a picture. How did you feel in your skin? What words would you use to describe you at that age? And as you continue slowly to move your pen around that spiral, imagine that your feet are also moving around that spiral. And now you go to 11 and 12 and 14 or 16. Feel the changes in your body as I put a new age, as your pen touches the paper, and we slow down long enough just to go back and retrace with the interest of what did you think of you? What was your awareness when you self-reflected? And we'll go forward now. So we'll go 19, 23, 25, 27. I'm doing the spiral with my body. 29, 32. And who were you there? Who were you for yourself there? What did you think? Not all of it will be pretty. Not all of it will be kind. But that's the thing about creative timelining, is we get to be honest with ourselves, right? And you think about what are the words that you might use to describe you at that age. All right. And then we're going to go around a little further and a little further and a little further. So now you're coming into your 30s, depending on how old you are now, your 40s, 45, 48, 53, 68, right? Bring yourself all the way forward through the drawing of the spiral. And as you do, give yourself the room, give yourself the place to know that you can return to this spot when you're doing the activity on your own. And you can fill each word in as you go through the spiral. All right. So what happens with creative timelining is you get visually creative and you look through a certain window or a certain lens. So this lens that we're doing along with this spiral is the lens of how you saw yourself. And when you do this, if you'll take the time, it's probably a 30-minute activity. You can print the pages out. You can make the spiral big or little. When you take the time to do this, what you're doing is you're celebrating the experience, even if it wasn't positive, that you had it, that you see it. You're also starting, when you get to do timeline, you start to put the pattern together. You get to see the changes as they were made, right? And so in the context of those changes, it gives you a place to just ponder life and ponder you inside of that life. So I hope that you will actually take the time to do this activity because I just think it is so enriching. And every time I do them, I'm shocked and I'm in awe, and it causes me to feel things, and I find myself appreciating, right? Just appreciating the depth of my life moments, and also potentially I can feel for myself. I can feel bad for myself, or I can celebrate myself, right? So I hope that you will do this. All right. On that note, we are coming to the end of the hour. I just really want to say thank you for helping me live my dream to share growth work on this platform, in this context. And I hope that you will find yourself wanting to engage with all of the things that we provide for you. And also, if you would like to write me at hello@expeditionself.com, I would love to hear from you. And our next shows, I think I said the 18th and the, oh boy, I think it's the 24th or something. Yeah, I think it's the 24th. Anyway, I hope we see you at the next shows. And I will wish you a flashlight on the self in life. Right, there we go, flashlight on the self. And that you open to the magic of all that undiscovered, yet to be noticed and dialogued with inner self. So have a wonderful, wonderful end of May, and I'll see you in June.